Hey guys, this is Shayna from yumiyarns.com. We're just going to do a quick little video today about doing a long tail cast on. This is part of a series that I'm doing for the 2021 Indie Sock Along that we're running. And this month's dyer is Suburban Stitcher. Diane provided the yarn for our tutorial series, the basic sock patterns, and for the January socks, which the January socks are called A Sip of Bobbly, and they're very cute. They have all over twisted ribbing and bobbles at the cuff. They are both top down and toe up, and so we're going to be doing tutorials for a cuff down sock and a toe up sock this month. We're starting off with cuff down because that's what I learned on, and in my mind that's my preferred method, but I know there are other people that are very like toe up is the only way. And honestly, there's benefits to learning both. I tend to just do whatever the pattern says, but cuff down for me is my preferred because that's kind of my comfort zone knitting. So today we've got our tutorial for doing the long tail cast on. This is the colorway Clean Slate from Suburban Stitcher that we'll be using. I've got flexi flip needles that I am using. You could also use DPNs, so double pointed needles. You could do the magic loop method. There's a bunch of different ways of knitting socks, and the tutorials that I'm going to show you will work for any of those ways. This is just one of my preferred styles of needles for sock knitting, so that's what I'm going to be using. So for the long tail cast on, this is a pretty standard cast on. And it works well for most people. If you are a tight knitter, I highly recommend going and checking out my tutorial at yumiyarns.com for the German twisted cast on. That one's just a little bit stretchier, and honestly, if you just wanted to learn a new technique, a new cast on, that's a great one to keep in your back pocket. It's good for a lot of things with ribbing. It's my preferred way to start off any brioche pattern, just because it's very similar to long tail, but it gives you just a little bit more stretch. So today though, we're doing a long tail because it's basic socks, so we need a basic cast on, right? So what you do, this is our tail end of our yarn. I usually use about a yard or a meter. So basically I just kind of stretch it out to an arm length, and that's where I am. So our tail's over here. Our yarn connected to our ball is on this side. I'm just going to scooch the ball of yarn up a little bit. And then normally you would do a slip knot here to put your needle into. I don't, just because I don't like the little knot from the slip knot, so I'm going to show you a different trick to do so you don't have to mess with that either. So what you do, take 3 fingers, grasp the yarn so that the tail is coming out the top, the ball is coming out the bottom. Make like you're pretending to hold a play gun, like when you're little and played cops and robbers or things like that. And you're going to wrap the yarn around the outside of the index and thumb, and then you're going to tuck the tail down with the other one. Make sure that your tail is going this direction, so to the right, and the ball is going to the left. That's why we're keeping the ball over there, to help you guys remember. I'm going to grab just a single needle for our cast on, and this is the trick that I use in place of using a slip knot. I just set my needle on top of the yarn that's going between my thumb and forefinger, and then holding the bottom of it, you just wrap the yarn with your index finger over and back so that it's now twisted on there, and that is my replacement for a slip knot. And you do kind of have to hold it in place till you get a stitch or two on the needle, but it's easy. I prefer it. So you're going to pull up a little bit of yarn and bring it back so you have kind of like a slingshot, and then you're going to come over and see this X right here? You're going to be working inside that X, between the X and your thumb. So you're going to bring your needle up from the bottom of your thumb up to the top, and while you do that, you're going to scoop up this strand of yarn, and you're going to come over here to your index finger And the yarn that's going from your index finger to the needle, you're going to go behind it, grab it, and come back over this way to your thumb and go right back down your thumb towards the base, so kind of undoing what you had just done. And then you're going to move your thumb, slide it out, hold your stitches in place for the time being so that that little loop that came off your thumb doesn't pop onto your needle, because that can make things confusing, and it's very, very common if this is your first time doing a long tail cast on for that extra yarn to pop over the top of your needle, and then your stitches look very confused. So say you have to drop your stitches off for whatever reason. It's going to look like this. So you've got yarn going to your ball, you've got your tail, and your stitches look a little bit wonky, but it'll be okay. As long as your tail's going this way, coming off the front of your needle, like the side facing you, and the ball's going off the back of your needle, put your fingers right in between like that, grab the yarn, spread your fingers apart, pull it back, and you're back to your slingshot. So we're going to do it one more time. Cast on one more stitch. We're going to go up the thumb, picking up that outside strand of yarn, around, picking up that strand from the pointer finger, and we're going to go back down your thumb. Remember, working in between that X, slide the yarn off and pull it tight. So you have your third stitch. I'm going to go a little bit faster and show you one more time. So up, around, down, and off, and pull. And you don't need to get them like crazy tight. You want them to lay nicely on the needle, but you don't want them to be like strangling your needle, because that'll make for a really tight cast on and really uncomfortable socks that may not fit over your heel. So you want to be a little bit loose with this. If it helps, like I said, definitely try that German twisted cast on if you're concerned that you're going to have too tight of a cast on. Otherwise, another trick is to hold two needles together and pretend that they're one needle. So do your whole cast on holding the two needles together instead of just the one. And then once your cast on is done, you slide the second needle out. That'll give you a nice loose cast on, and you'll be good to go. I'm working 64 stitch socks for these, so I'm going to finish up casting on all 64 stitches. And then tomorrow we're going to work on the ribbing, which is the next part of your sock. The pattern for the basic sock is not out yet. We're going to go through kind of like I do in my classes that I teach, and I'm going to teach you the different elements of the sock and how it's constructed in these tutorials. And then the free pattern will be available January 13th, 2021. That'll be at yumiyarns.com to get that free pattern, so you can make your own socks in all sorts of different sizes. Again, thank you, Diane from Suburban Stitcher, for providing the yarn for our tutorials. And you guys go visit her site. She's got beautiful, beautiful colorways, and her yarns are really, really nice to work with. I'll put a link down below the video. If you're not already, subscribe to my channel. And if you aren't on my newsletter list, you should be. I send out a newsletter on Wednesdays, and I try to include tutorials and pattern recommendations and upcoming events and stuff like that. I don't send out garbage stuff. I try to make it a very high value newsletter for you. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow with the Indie Sock Along cuff down ribbing tutorial. Thank you.